Oddly, the exact origin of the word God is unknown. All that we know for certain is that the word God is a relatively new European invention, which was never used in any of the ancient Judeo-Christian scriptural manuscripts, which were written in Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, or Latin. This situation is quite remarkable since there's a long history of people arguing and fighting over the name of God. Yet we don't even know where this European invented word God came from. Amusingly, none of the prophets, sages, and disciples who wrote down the various books of the Bible would recognize or understand this recently invented word, God. Yet people fight over it. Welcome, family, to another edition of Stranger Thinking Media. This is Yeshayahu, where we bring you the gospel of Yahusha HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, to address the problems of a modern world. Today's topic is God, Gadreel, God by any other name, part 3. Gadreel the deceiver, Gadreel the goat god. Isaiah 42, I am Yahweh. That is my name, and my glory will I not give to another. For mine own sake, even for mine own sake, will I do it. For how should my name be polluted? And I will not give my glory unto another. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore they shall know in that day that I am he that doth speak. Behold, it is I, Yahweh. Okay, so we're going to reach back into the book of Enoch, book 3, called the book of Noah, and chapter 4, Secrets of the Parables. And so in the book of Enoch, in this particular verse, they're going into, I'm going to pick up where this is starting off. They're going into all the rebellious watcher angels that the archangel Michael said that they were acting like as if they were God, or in other words, they were acting as if they were the Most High. You know, I don't want to use the term God too much because that gets a little confusing for what we're doing here. So, 200 of these angels who were given watch over the creation of Yah decided they kind of liked the way Yah was living. They wanted to be like the Most High. They weren't trying to overthrow the Most High. That's the most insane nonsense ever. They know they can't do that. They weren't trying to do that. But they wanted to be like him outside of the normal, what he had. He created them for a reason, and they went outside of what their taskings were. So they wanted to be like him. And I can go into that a little more. And there was some jealousy with this new creation called man. And so we're going to tap into what those 200 angels, or those watchers, what they call the watchers, did. And they were set in troops. So underneath these, I think it was the top 21 guys, they were divided into troops. And the next level, or if you want to say second tier of the watchers, you have your top 21. And then under them, you had, I forget how many, but they divided them up into like troops. And one of these, we pick up in chapter 10, his name is Gadreel, or sometimes rendered Gadreel. And so we read, and the third was named Gadreel. He it is who showed the children of men all the blows of death, and he led astray Eve. Now, that's important. And showed the shield and the coat of mail, and the sword for the battle, and all the weapons of death to the children of men. And from his hand they have proceeded against those who dwell on the earth from that day and forevermore. So it was Gadreel. If you dig into it, it says it's Gadreel that taught men essentially war, the blows of death, swords and battles and weapons and all that. But it also attributed that to Azazel, who was one of the chief of the 21, the top 21 tier. And we can get into Azazel because if you know anything about the feasts of the Lord, or the feasts of Yahweh, one of them is called, in the modern terms, it's called Yom Kippur. In the King James Version, it renders it as the Day of Atonement. And on the Day of Atonement, they had 2 goats, and one goat they sacrificed. The other goat was taken out into the wilderness, into the desert, by the hand of a strong man. Now we can get into all what that means, but not in this particular video. But the name of that goat that was taken off into the wilderness, the name of that goat, after the high priest put his hands on the head of that goat and transferred the sins of the people of Israel onto that goat, he was taken out into the wilderness, far, far away, so he could never find his way back, and then let go. So he would wander, aimlessly forever. And they named that goat Azazel. So it's also attributed to Azazel that his punishment as one of the 200 watchers was extreme. In fact, more extreme than the others. They talked about him being not only chained up, but the Most High said, let's put jagged rocks and bury this one deep. Jagged rocks and bury him deep. That's how upset the Most High was with Azazel. So essentially, he taught men how to kill and murder each other efficiently. But then it also attributes that to Gadreel. Now, Gadreel was one of the lower watchers. He's one of the captains of bands of angels. So it would appear, from what I'm reading, is that Azazel was like his mentor. But it was Gadreel that carried out the actual deed. But it also attributes the leading astray of Eve, or sometimes translated Shua, but we'll say Eve because everybody knows Eve, right? It says that Gadreel is who led Eve astray. Well, that goes back to Genesis, right? To the serpent, right? So was it Gadreel in the form of a serpent, or seraph, however you want to call it? Is he a seraph? One of the shiny ones that led Eve astray? Well, according to this, yes. So Gadreel led Eve astray. So today, most people would say, well, that would be Satan. So is Gadreel Satan's real name? And of course, Satan just means adversary. And in the book of Enoch, they don't talk about Satan. They talk about the Satans, many of them, not, many adversaries, not just one adversary. So the deception of Eve is attributed to one of the Satans, who's named Gadreel. Note, his name is Gadreel. And are you seeing where I'm going with this? Now, I can't prove it. And a lot of people would argue with me about the etymology of the word. But it just looks right. It just feels right, if you follow what I'm saying. God, we know from the previous video, spelt in English G-A-D, right? But pronounced God. And, we saw in the previous video, and we'll go rehash it a little bit, that the word God ultimately comes from, meaning the word G-O-D in English, ultimately comes from G-A-D in Hebrew. And really, I think it's G-D, but pronounced or spelled in English would be GAD. And we're not going to get into that either, but you get where I'm going with this. So Gadreel deceived Eve in the Garden of Eden. And it gets a little hairy after that, but let's move on. And then we saw, and this is just a rehash of the last video, the word God is spelled G-A-D, but pronounced G-O-D, God. The word God, which was also one of the tribes of Israel, it meant, we went over it in the previous video, it meant a troop, and that was the intent of his mother in naming him God, meaning a troop. But it also meant goat. So in this sense, God means goat. The word God also means luck. It was once associated with a lucky star. It was also the name of a heathen idol. It came to mean God, G-O-D. And now English word God, G-O-D, is derived from the Hebrew God, G-A-D. In Hebrew, the A sound in God was actually pronounced more like an O. The name G-A-D sounded like God. Could have been pronounced like Goth, since the D sound is unaccentuated and comes out like the English th. Okay, so what I'm saying here is, from the first video, part 1, we talked about how God, if you don't go too far back in English, it goes back to Germanic. Godin is Lombardic. They shortened it to God. Instead of Godin, it was God. But even older language, that came from somewhere. So we go back to ancient Phoenician or Paleolithic Hebrew, and it's rendered in King James as G-A-D, Gad. So the scriptures tell you that it means a troop, but it doesn't also tell you the different meanings of that word, one of them being a goat. So we have Odin, Godin, Godin, God, referencing this goat personality from the Middle East, or what I call Northeast Africa, which is what it used to be rendered. And you see a connection in how they're depicted. Odin is very similarly depicted as Baphomet, who is the goat. And then you could say the goat god, or the god of the desert, or the god of the wilderness. According to the Day of Atonement, he was named Azazel. But then the same attributes of Azazel are attributed to Gadreel, right? As if he was an underling of Azazel, right? So they both, in line, teach men how to war and kill each other, which was most heinous in the sight of the Most High. So apparently Azazel, being the guy with the big idea, who came up with the idea, and then probably, I'm guessing, took one of his minions to carry out the training to teach men how to war. And these are all spiritual entities. So these are ideas popping into men's heads, if you had to look at it from the outside. Not necessarily that they could see, unless the angel manifested it himself as a human. But, I digress. So we won't go too far off on a tangent, but just understand that it was Gadreel that deceived Eve. And so that puts him in line to also be the shiny one, the seraph, or the serpent in the garden. So today we would say, hey, that's Satan, right? That's his, I guess his real name is Gadreel. So here's the irony, could it possibly be that all this time we were sitting here worshiping God, but what we really have been doing is worshiping Gadreel, the one who deceived us in the first place? And that would sound like, wow, what a plan. Paul said that Satan is the prince of the power of the air. He's the God of this world. Or he's Gadreel, the God of this world. And in a weird sense, have we been worshiping Satan, using the term God this whole time? Gadreel, the shortened version. That would be a deception and a half. And wow. So that's why I say we need to get away from all that and start calling the Creator by his proper name, Yahweh, because anything else you choose has already been created for you to lead you astray. And we think we're so smart that that couldn't happen to me. Yeah, you're smarter than these ancient created beings that have been around since the creation of the earth. You're smarter than them. You have the only weapon you have against them is the word. And if you think you can outsmart them, you're already deceived. You're already a minion. That the first understanding is you cannot defeat them unless you put on the full armor of the Most High, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, gird about with truth, shod with the preparation of the gospel, with the sword of the Spirit of the word in your mouth. How did Jesus defeat Ashatan on the mountaintop? Every time he would tempt him, he would just pull out the word and spit it out of his mouth like a sword out of his mouth. And Ashatan, Satan, would have to run away. That's the power of the word. And the shield of faith to turn back the darts of the enemy. So understand, you're not going to outsmart these guys. In your arrogance, you think you can make up your own religion. Oh, the scripture says this, but I don't have to do that, or that doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to do it. Torah means instruction. You vary from instruction, and then you go out on your own. You're in error. You're going to fail. You're going to fall. And if you fall, you'll be broken. Turn back to the Most High if you fall. Ask for forgiveness. Keep getting up, But get away from these man-made concepts. If you look at most of your man-made concepts from most of these world religions, what you will find that it all goes back to Babylon. I mean, Israel was the quintessential definition of oddballs. They did nothing like the rest of the nations. I mean, in the beginning, they were taught to be completely different because the systems that the nations were working under were systems developed by essentially backsliding angels, if you will. And they mimic the creator, but they're not the creator. We worship them, human beings, as God, but they're not the creator God. And I got a video coming that's going to blow your mind about angels. I mean, what are they? We think we know what they are, but do we really know what they are? Anyway, that's going to be a good. I like talking about that stuff. That's going to be a good video, and I'm trying to make a mental note so I don't forget to do that one in the near future. But yes, that's the bottom line. Is there's a good possibility we've been worshiping Satan all along, praying to Gadreel, and that's going to flip a lot of people out. So that's not my intent to flip people out, but do your own research, and you have to think for yourself. Yeah, shepherd. You need a shepherd to get you started, but after a while, you can't keep just drinking milk. Some of you are past that. You got teeth now, spiritual teeth. Use them. It's time for you to eat meat. Stop drinking milk. Eat meat now. Acts chapter 4, verse 12. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. And that name is Yahusha. Okay? Most people, especially in the Western world, say Jesus. You know, I'm not down on anybody for saying that, you know, because, you know, I was taught that. We were all taught that. But understand, he's a Judean. The Messiah is a Judean of the tribe of Yahudah, pronounced in English Judah. So we would say today he was a Jew, not Jewish, but a Jew. And so understand, his name was a Hebrew name. His mother named him a Hebrew name. You know what I'm saying? So I just find it more correct to use his Hebrew name because he's a Hebrew. So I'll leave it at that for now. I'm not pounding on anybody about that. Well, family, I love you guys all so much. Thank you for continually supporting my content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, and share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they would find it interesting as well. I'm very excited to continue this journey with you. I thank you all for bringing certain stories to my attention and for continually keeping me updated with certain events around the world. I very much appreciate you all, and shout out to the channel members. May everybody have a blessed and beautiful day who is in the body of Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and we'll see you all on the next video. Shalom.